Sports. John Costas is here, former chairman and CEO of UBS Investment Bank and now vice chairman of Team Secret, a global esports brand that represented two players in this weekend's competition. And John Yao, CEO of Team Secret. Good morning to both of you guys.
Good morning.
Heck of a weekend. And now I really should tell my children to play Fortnite, right? Is that the lesson of all of this?
31 million exchanged hands. So, yeah, it was a pretty exciting weekend.
So here's the question I have. There was, early on in esports, there was this idea that people were going to have teams. It was going to be a team-based situation. I'm thinking of what Activision Blizzard was doing. And the more I'm seeing this, I'm starting to think it really is about individuals. It's about the Michael Jordans of this rather than the teams. How do you guys both think about that and where this is all headed?
It's a little bit of both, I would say. You're always going to get the superstar players like your Jordans, right, your Barkleys, et cetera. But they reside around teams, right? When people think about success in traditional sports, they think about the Patriots, the Bulls, the Lakers, et cetera. And so it is very much a team-based game. And so you will get superstars, but you will also get very strong franchises that are very team-based.
But are the franchises geographic, or are they, in this virtual world, it doesn't matter where you really are?
So they're global. That's, John's on a plane, lives at 24/7. When I talk with him, first thing I ask, which continent are you on, John? And I think one of your impressions, this Fortnite game is much more focused on individual players,
right,
where the team competitions literally have a team pitted against another team, 15,000 people cheering them on and taking sides. So I think the Fortnite was skewed a little more towards individuals.
And how long are both of you convinced that Fortnite will be the game that still sort of propels so much of this? I know there are other games you guys play, but in terms of the game we'll be talking about 5 years from now.
Yeah, I think so. I think it remains to be seen, but I think Fortnite has done something that no other game has, which is really pushed esports to the mainstream. Right. So before it was very, all the hardcore gaming enthusiasts were involved with esports. It became more and more mainstream, but Fortnite really put it at its forefront. Right. So everybody's involved with it. Everybody's heard of it. And so I think that has really changed that dynamic and has been really good for esports industry overall.
We see these numbers about the hours watched on Twitch and other platforms. Is that just people finding things and the algorithm serving them up something new, or is there going to be a time when there's rights to these things and it's basically like other sports?
So I would say, answer to all these questions, the evolution and the movement in this space is just unbelievable. That's why I find it so interesting and fascinating to be part of it. There's a game, Apex Legends, did not exist 6 months ago. There's 50 million people playing it today. So I think both your points, the migration of where the value is derived in participating in this space, it is as dynamic and much in movement as it possibly could be. So our goal every day is to try to discern where the correct path ultimately will be to build the team. I mean, your parent company is building a physical place in Philadelphia that's going to be a massive scale for their team. There's cafes throughout Europe. There's participation at various levels on Twitch and YouTube and other forums. And so that's the fun of it, because just trying to understand really a lot like the internet in the late 90s, most of these opportunities.
Okay, but from the investment perspective, do you want to own the game makers? Do you want to own these physical places where the games are being played? Do you want to own the media companies or the distribution companies that are going to be people are going to be watching? How do you think about that?
So first of all of the above, but in what percentage and how you allocate your resources. So there's been about $4 billion raised, several hundred transactions in the last 24 months for just in the esports team space. The valuations, and I put that in quotes, are 20 to 50 times revenues. So they're not really valuations, they're options, premiums on the space to have a seat at the table. And our approach is really going to be, John's out there trying to always discern what is the optimal path. We're self-funding right now, and when we find it.
Is there like a David Bowie situation with certain players, though, that are effectively going to be able to monetize themselves? Is that how this is ultimately going to go? Or how much are you paying players to join the team?
Yeah, so we do pay salaries to our players. It really depends on the game and the player. I think there is situations where players can monetize themselves, but the teams also have a very big role.
What's like a minimum salary?
It really depends on the market, especially if you look at across the different world. We have 7 teams across 15 different countries, so there's always different salaries.
Okay, on the high end?
On the high end, some of my players can make $500,000 a year at the age of 16, 18.
At the age of 16, 18.
Yeah.
But I was going to ask about when you talk about participation. Is it kids that are playing it? Is it geared? I mean, are we seeing more older individuals getting involved, women getting involved? How much is it broadening out in terms of participation?
I think the athletes tend to skew younger. So especially Fortnite, you have kids as young as 13 playing it. Our eldest player is 27, so that's kind of the range. In terms of viewership,
so 27 is old. You got to retire when you're 27.
Start to lose your ability.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Do you think it's that you get into it? I mean, is this a thumb situation? What are we talking about?
Yeah, so mechanically you do tend to age out a little bit, but you get to a point where the younger kids are faster, right? Okay. So.